Hello and welcome to Close Calls on the 42.e, brought to you in association with Air Sport. You know the drill. Every weekend we look ahead to the biggest sporting event of the weekend, and we dial up the hottest pundits in the game to talk us through it. Gavan Casey here, joined by Kevin O'Brien of the 42. Kev, how are things?
All good, Gav.
The reason Kevin is here is because the National Leagues are throwing in this weekend, and we are delighted to be joined by Kildare football legend Johnny Doyle. Johnny, how are things?
Alright, no, it's good now, yeah, thanks lads.
Are you excited, Johnny? Fever pitch is back upon us.
Yeah, it's great, it's exciting, the league starting, and I suppose, I don't know whether it's when you get older the time goes quicker, but it only seems like the other day we were talking about All-Ireland finals and stuff like that, and all of a sudden here we are at the end of January and ready to get stuck into the leagues again. It's always a good time of the year. You're looking at how teams are going, and it gives you, I suppose, a flavour of maybe what way teams are shaping up for the championship. It gives you a little bit of an indicator of where the form is, regardless of what league you're in. Obviously, we're all looking at the Division 1, but even to see how teams are settling in different divisions and are they making a bit of progress, or it gives you an idea of what way they're going for the championship as well. So it's always an exciting time, and maybe gives teams a bit of a chance to blood new players, and maybe some of the stars we've seen at minor, over the last number of years might get an opportunity and see how they're developing and stuff like that. So it's an exciting time, and albeit that it's still only January, but you're still looking forward to the league ahead.
100%. Yeah, it only does seem like a couple of weeks ago, Johnny, that you were advocating the throwing of GPS units at your fellow players. Nah, I'm only joking, Johnny. Kev,
I had to go to the ground after that.
Kev, you, as Johnny was saying there, it is an opportunity, obviously, to blood youth. We know that about the league, but I think particularly this season, you and I were having a conversation before we came on air here, and given the way the championship is structured now this year, the league might sort of go back to what it was a little bit more of a few years back, where it was literally about finding out what kind of players you can embed in your squad for a championship, because the championship schedule this year is going to be so hectic. You're probably risking burnout given how condensed the fixture list is overall if you're going to be fielding full teams for the whole competition.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Obviously with the Super 8s coming in this year, it's kind of geared towards the the top 8 teams, so you'd imagine the elite teams would probably focus more on building the squads. For the lower teams, in the lower divisions, it's probably still as important as it ever was. You'd imagine for a lot of teams it's important to kind of get a good run of form and hit the championship, hit the ground running. But if you look at the top tier of teams, for the likes of Dublin, Mayo, Kerry, they kind of know what they have. It's about maybe finding 1 or 2 players during the league, and then you can add them in then during the championship.
Absolutely, Johnny. I mean, we might as well get stuck straight into it. I suppose there's no good time to play Dublin, and hasn't been for a number of years, but first round of the league, or first weekend of the league rather, probably not the worst time either. How do you think your lads are shaping up?
Yeah, well, look, it's probably not the worst time, albeit it's still Dublin. They're full of confidence, and even maybe 1 or 2 young lads that might come in, or debutants that they'll have, will just seem to be able to just fall in seamlessly into the system that they play. And I suppose success breeds success, and that confidence is there. And when your confidence is high, it's a big part of the winning formula. But you're looking at Dublin, I think, not long back after their well-deserved break, headed off on holidays, as All-Ireland champions normally do around this time of the year. And so you'd be thinking, maybe the workload Kildare have got through over the previous couple of months, should leave them in reasonably good position if they are going to cause a bit of a shock at the weekend. Might be rather than maybe getting them in the last game of the league when Dublin are really up and running. So in that regard, it's probably not a bad time to get them. Obviously, going to Croke Park is I know from my own experience, and everyone has different experience. I always loved going to Croke Park, but it was full or empty. But some people say, well, it can be a dull place when it's empty, which is a fair enough point. But I think from a Kildare point of view, the Oban Cup was the period they trial a lot of these players. They put out teams that even Kildare supporters weren't sure of lads that came in to have for Keenan and his management to have a look at, and you didn't. I think that's what the O'Byrne Cup was used for, regardless of results. Just give lads a bit of an introduction to inter-county football and see where they go from there. But look, it's still a big ask for Kildare. I suppose you're trying to put yourself in the players' point of view and what way maybe you'd be thinking yourself. And we would have got a few plaudits thrown our way over the summer because we were, I think we probably troubled Dublin in a little bit, albeit not a huge amount, but we would have got a lot of bouquets thrown at Kildare during the summer because of the way they went about the Leinster final and kept them within a certain score and all this sort of thing. So I'm sure the lads will be thinking of building on that and looking forward to the championship, Kildare and Dublin on the different sides of the draw. And I know if I was there, I'd be thinking I'd love to get another crack at Dublin in the Leinster final and see, didn't we improve, and see, can we close the gap? And no better time to measure yourself than the first game in the National League. So that's what I'd be looking from a Kildare point of view.
You mentioned the championship game last year where Kildare gave Dublin a little bit of trouble, certainly early doors, like they were pushing them, a couple of mistakes cost them, and I know the Kildare players, speaking to a few of them afterwards, were absolutely devastated. They went into that game with the intention of winning it and nothing else, which is commendable. Obviously, if you get them in the league now, say at the weekend, even if you can, look, there's no point in going in with obviously a defeatist attitude, but if you can run Dublin close to begin your campaign and you actually lay down a bit of a marker by, even if you come in within a few points of them, do you think that kind of, like, obviously it's going to be more so about the performance? Very often I suppose we see the league, like teams' league form kind of related to championship form. Sometimes it doesn't apply at all, but for a team like Kildare, if they can lay down that kind of marker against the All-Ireland champions, do you think it can be a kind of a springboard for them to go maybe a step further in the championship this year?
Absolutely. I mean, like it's this time of the year, it's a lot of the pre-season is done. They put in a huge amount of work, and the players are human. They question themselves. When things are going well, the confidence is high, and even if that's a point of view of where, as you say, can put in a good performance, maybe close that gap. Even if they're beaten, if they can put in a good performance, going into the Monaghan game and build on that again, it just makes training come Tuesday night say, well, look, we are making progress. We are, all the effort, all the commitment that we're putting in, it's starting to show. Regardless of the result, I think that's positive for any team. But if you go out, and God knows I was on a lot of the teams that we went out and you were beaten by 10 or 11 points, you come back and you do question yourself, what is this all about? Are we getting any better? We're spending all this time in here, and I know when I played it, I just got more contrary. I questioned what everyone was doing, like giving out to lads, and they'd be, and that's not a nice environment. So, if Kildare could put a good performance in at the weekend, obviously the players will expect to win, and rightly so. That's, if you don't have that, you shouldn't be going out there. But from my point of view is can we put a little bit of a dent in the Dublin I suppose the machine, and say, well, look, we are gaining ground, and come away from a positive from that point of view. I think that wouldn't be a bad night's work. Obviously you'd be going to say, well, look, we're going to win this, and I'm not involved in the squad. I know I played with a few of the players. There's a lot of the players I don't know, but I'm sure the lads are saying, we've got to make progress here, and last year didn't finish as well as the year. We would have went beaten by Armagh, and talking to one or two of them during the year, they were mad keen to get back and build on last year's success, and I'm hoping to see some of that eagerness and some of that determination. Let's be honest about it, the only place it does count is when you cross the white line, and you can train all you want and you can put in all the effort, but if you don't produce it when you cross the line, what does it count for really?
Kev, when Dublin cross the white line, what do you think they're going to be looking for this time? Because obviously, as Johnny mentioned, and they were similar last year, where they probably started the serious end of their preparation for the year a little bit later than most teams, and it probably stood them in good stead last year, as we saw. For the Dubs and Jim Gavan, I mean, obviously, they're serial winners at this stage, particularly Gavan. They're going to be trying to win the league, given they didn't win it last year. But for a first game, what are we looking for from the Dubs? What are they looking for? What's Gavan looking for?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Like, I mean, Dublin are such a well-oiled machine at this stage. They probably won't go back, get the hard running going really till April. But I'd be very interested looking at the likes of Bernard Brogan and Kevin McManamon and even Diarmuid Connolly, who kind of, you know, none of them started the All-Ireland final last year, and the first two guys didn't even get a game, or McManamon didn't get a game, Brogan came on late on, and Connolly obviously came on at half time. But I think Jim Gavan in the past, he has shown that if guys show form early on in the league, they tend to keep their place. We've seen in the past with Michael Fitzsimons. So I definitely imagine that those three guys will really be targeting getting in the team early and performing, and then keeping that jersey, you know, through the league and hopefully the championship. So it'll be interesting to see how, you know, what kind of team he goes with first of all, and then the older guys, how they actually fare.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it probably will transpire to be more of an audition for players as individuals than an assessment of Dublin collectively, because, as you say, we kind of know what they are collectively at this point. They've known what to prove. Johnny, if you were to look at the other Division 1 sides, I suppose young David Clifford is a name on a lot of people's lips where Kerry are concerned, the next great hope down there. What do you see coming from Kerry this year? I know some of the former Kerry players, a couple of the O'Sheas, have said, like, they don't see Kerry really challenging for an All-Ireland this year. Maybe a little bit typical of them, but like, they did seem quite genuine in that this is going to be a 3-year process, and that, you know, maybe the spoils lie in wait closer to 2020. How do you see them going this year, and what can you or what do you expect them to try to do in the league? Is it about getting the likes of Clifford involved and maybe transitioning the squad a little bit more?
Yeah, well, look at it. I'm sure they're no different in Kerry. They look to add strength to their panel, and they've had huge success at minor level. And, you know, while I know even speaking to one or two over the summer from Kerry, yes, they're delighted to have that success, but they're more interested to see how many of them can make that transition and make that step up the senior, and that's a big step. And, you know, while it can be with a playing top under 21 or with a really good club playing good football, it's still a massive step up to the level that the Dublins and Kerrys and inter-county top tier teams are playing, and that's where a lot of young lads fail. And I suppose, you know, you talk to David Clifford, and it's going to be, you know, there's huge pressure on that young man at the moment, and I suppose it's maybe a little bit like Jim Gavan in with Con O'Callaghan over the last couple of years, and we see one or two of the other Dublin lads like Cormac Costello. You know, the whole pressure wasn't put on. Certain matches he'd come in, certain matches he wouldn't play, and I think that would be something maybe Eamon Fitzsimons will do with the likes of some of them young lads, and particularly David Clifford. You know, it's a big step up. You know, where he was a huge, big physical man at minor. You know, he's going to be meeting lads as big and strong and you know, as aggressive at senior level. So while he's a huge future, you know, he's not the typical minor. We all know that, and there's a fair chance we're going to be looking at you know, the next generation of Super Kerry forward without a doubt. But it's going to take him time, and I think Fitzsimons Eamon Morris has said that on numerous occasions over the winter. It's going to take time. So from a Kerry point of view, I think, you know, it's really, I don't mind what Tomas and these guys down there say about how, I think when the talk that Kerry are going bad, it's normally a time to worry. But, you know, they're definitely the makings to be, they're a top 3 team. They'll be thereabouts, and I'd say like that they'll use the league. Obviously, you know, they want to get into the latter stages again, but they'll use it to blood 1 or 2 players intermittently within that, and get them up to speed and get them ready for championship. And I think, you know, if you're bringing a betting man, you'll like to see, you think, to be in the league semi-final or final, and see where it goes from there for them. But, you know, the day you think Kerry are down is the day they normally jump the highest.
Absolutely,
you know?
yeah. We'll have to be careful, all right, with the Kerry men. Like, presumably Mayo or the other team in the top 3 that you allude to there, have we reached a point with Mayo where we just kind of have to accept that they are going to come again? I mean, last year was the year where everyone thought, nah, they've you know, it's probably a bridge too far this year. The years of heartbreak will finally take its toll, and yet they come close again. Like, they have become so relentless over the last couple of years that it's almost, they won't consider it a given, but for the rest of us it's like, yeah, Mayo will be thereabouts again. There's no point in writing them off anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing, you know, they show that resilience over the last number of years, and, you know, you can, I thought maybe we might see the end of one or two of them, particularly Andy Moore, and you'd be thinking, obviously Alan Dillon has retired, and people would say, oh, well, he's not a huge loss, he hasn't got game time, but what people don't see is the presence in the dressing room that someone like Alan Dillon would bring, and his loss would be felt, there's no doubt about it. And a really level-headed guy, really hard-working guy, had been the star of that team for years, and I've seen him up close when he wasn't playing with, and he's just such a humble guy. He was there encouraging, and I saw him. We played one time when he was in an opening of a field, and he wasn't playing, but he was carrying water and stuff like that. To see from your top guys leading the line as he has done for so often is, so them guys are not replaced just on a whim either, but it also gives an opportunity for other guys. And Mayo had certain success at won an under-21 All-Ireland, and they look to again bring that some of that team and again to find one or two players that will, even not starters, but that might influence the game coming off the bench. We looked at Loftus last year. Guys like that are going to make just could be enough to make that thing click. Even it's challenging lads in training. It's coming in with it full of enthusiasm into training. I often remember watching clips years ago of the Kerry team of '75. They were all a team of bachelors. That was a big thing at the time. But it was. I remember Mick Dwyer talking one night about them. It was just they were like, you just had to nearly hold them back. They were full of life, full of energy, and they just wanted to play football and wanted to win. And that was enough for them to be successful. And I think you need that youth coming in to challenge, whether it's in training games or maybe get a game or two throughout the league, just to keep the thing taking over. And I think Mayo will use the league in that way to just maybe find one or two players that could just be enough to unlock, because they're very, very close to making the breakthrough, and I think they know that. And you have to admire them, their resilience, time and time again. They come back, and even when there's we saw the saga with Pat Holmes and Noel Connolly that time. It wasn't a popular thing to do. Divided maybe lots of people are all over the country, but they were, they put their heads above the parapet, and that to me shows that there's substance in them. Whether you agree or not, they were willing to, go out of the comfort zone for what they perceived was best for football. As we could argue, and I'd argue pros and cons for both sides of it, but at least they showed a bit of something that they want this very bad. And when you want something really bad, and you keep knocking on the door, I think at some stage it's going to open if you're ready to cross the threshold. And I think Mayo will be thereabouts for the year ahead.
I just think on Mayo, it's going to be very difficult in terms of the league. I don't think they've won a league since 2001, and they have 18 guys based in Dublin, so it's never really fair to judge them on the league. We kind of know what we're going to get with Mayo at this stage. They know themselves. They're at that age where they don't necessarily need to have a strong league campaign. We saw last year they struggled for long spells. And
they don't even need to have a strong championship campaign until the last four.
Exactly. And that's where the Super 8s is going to shake things up a little bit, where they might have to hit form that bit earlier. But I certainly think, like Johnny said, one or two players maybe to come off the bench, because you look at the subs that came off the bench in the All-Ireland final last year compared to the Dublin subs, and I think that's where they lacked a little bit. So if they could get maybe another forward, or even give Conor Loftus more game time, I think that's where they could really benefit from the league. But I don't think it's going to have a major impact on their championship.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we know vaguely what Dublin and Mayo are going to be about in the league, Johnny, is there any kind of surprise package for you across all the divisions? Like, is there anyone you could see going very well in the league this year that maybe we haven't seen do so well in quite a while?
Yeah, well, look, I suppose you're looking at the next tier then is the likes of maybe Monaghan, Donegal. How will they get on with their new manager in Exon Bonner? There's a couple of teams will use the league to build that bit of confidence, and maybe won't, like the top teams that we mentioned, will look to hit the ground running, get early points on the board and build confidence. And that particularly in Division 1, maybe in the lower division or two, you might use it to blood players a little bit more. In the top team, even from a point of view of Kildare, they need to hit the ground running to build that confidence. And because if you're beaten in the first game or two, you're on the back foot and the pressure comes on, and it can be a daunting enough affair. So I'd like to see maybe Howard Tyrone going to come after coming off the back of a poor championship, losing Sean Cavan, and that was a big loss to him. How will they fare out? Always a strong team at home. Obviously Mickey Hart will have them well drilled and stuff like that. So again, it's very, you're looking into the unknown really. You're looking in hope that one of these teams will come and challenge, and maybe go on. And wouldn't it be great to see someone, obviously Kildare, you'd love to see them getting on, but wouldn't it be great to see someone the likes of Monaghan or something go on and win a league and see where that can take them? Could that be enough to propel them up, when it comes to the championship? You'd be hopeful of something like that, but it is hard to look beyond the Dublins and Kerrys and Mayo, and I think from a point of view of the likes of maybe Galway and Kildare, I think if the bookies are right, they're the first two. I think they're picking for the drop. So but you just want to make sure that they can, I suppose, from our point of view, is that they can go on and put in a good shift, and rather than being up and down as we have been in the past, to hold their status and get used to playing, because you improve playing against the top teams. Mistakes can be covered up a little bit when you go to the lower tiers. Every mistake is punished at the top tier, and that's the environment you want to upload lads and get them up to speed. And no better place than going to maybe going up to Donegal or going to Ulm or whatever the case may be. They're tough places that it's not about skillful football, it's about the battling qualities that's needed. You really find out when you're in the trenches who are the lads to stand up, and I think that's very, very important for the teams maybe outside of the top 3 or 4. That's what they really want to learn from the league, is when we're in trouble here, when you're in the trenches, who are the lads that are going to come out fighting, albeit whether they perform well or not, but are they going to keep going, are they going to be there come hell or high water? And I think that's what most people will look from the league.
Before we let you go, Johnny, and Kevin and I are about to go off on a hurling tangent here, but a man you'd be more than familiar with as taking the reins of Dublin, of course, in Pat Gilroy, and seems to have kind of instilled the type of steel that he instilled in the footballers some years back in this new hurling crop. Well, we say new hurling crop, but sort of his panel, a lot of players coming back in. What can we expect from, probably difficult to say what we can expect from Gilroy's hurlers, but what will he bring to the party where Dublin hurling is concerned that maybe they've been lacking over the last couple of years?
Well, I suppose, look, it's difficult to say what Dublin were lacking over the last few years in hurling sense. Obviously there was problems there. You had a lot of talent that, for whatever reason, and I suppose I'm not in a position to comment in any way because I don't have any information on it, but there was obviously somebody somewhere wasn't happy, and you want your best players playing for your county teams, there's no doubt about it. And obviously we've seen over the winter certain players have come back in and committed to the hurlers, which is great to see. I think from Pat's point of view, and when he came into the Dublin, he came in after Pillar Caffrey, whether they're truths or not, you always hear what goes on. I think he brought Dublin right back to basics. He talked about all the principles that he felt, all those values that he had about humility and courage and will to win, and all those things that maybe he felt that were lost. And to me, that doesn't matter whether you have a hurl in your hand or you're a soccer player or a rugby player, or the type of person. And we all read about the All Blacks, and they all talk about it in their sport. It's the type of person that you're trying to, the good person will be a good player. And I think that's one thing that Pat really got right. And in fairness, he put in a good foundation for Jim Gavan, and he's obviously brought it to a new level. And I know there's buzzwords always coming in and out of the GAA, but the culture, I think, what Pat had brought to from into the Dublin setup. He talked about sponsorship, and whatever players got, there was money to come back. There was sponsorship to come back into the pot, because if it wasn't for the players around them, they wouldn't be offered these and things like that. And I think that's he grounded the whole thing. And I think if he brings those principles that seem to be important to him into the Dublin hurling setup, I think they will prosper. There's no doubt about it. There's loads of different people throughout every sport that would go back to those things of honesty and being honest with yourself, being honest with players. And I've sat in dressing rooms and I've sat around teams, and players nod their head and they agree with that. But then they'll be tested on some aspect of that, and some lads will pass that test and some lads will fail. And I think Pat has a talent of getting those players. And it's funny, I looked at the Miko documentary, and as most of the country did, and Miko was a bit like that in an unusual way, where he wanted lads that wanted to play for Kildare, and if he went to every club, they'd all put up their hands and say, I want to play for Kildare. But he tested you then. It wasn't scientific, and it wasn't, I'm sure sports science people that would be just cringing at some of them. But when all was said and done, when it was stripped back, when he tested everyone, well, he saw that the lads that did want to play, and he knew the lads that didn't. And I think that's what Pat will bring as well. Whatever lads he finishes with, he'll have tested them and tested their mettle and tested their character. And I think when you've done that, you have a chance of being successful, and I think that's what Pat Kildare will bring.
Yeah, want probably isn't a quantifiable concept to the naked eye, but to the likes of Miko, to the likes of Pat, it does seem to be scientific in a way. Johnny, very briefly, because I know we're keeping you here, but a player you would have come up against plenty over the years, Conal Keeney back in the Dublin hurling fold as well. Probably great to see him back involved. I remember speaking to Conal in September of last year. He joked that at that time he was 34. He's 35 now, but he says, "Sure, I'm 34. I can barely bend down to pose for photographs here with some press junket." And all of a sudden he's I think he was on a program over the winter, and he's back in the fold.
Yeah, and I think it's great, because we hear, nearly every day about how you get past your 30s and that's it. You should be, and if you tell a lad enough, I suppose some lads will start believing it. And we lose so many, and they're, for whatever reason. And I understand people can't commit, and there's family, and there's injuries, and all that thing. And but it can be, they're the ones that grab the headlights, the ones that can't do it. Where I'd love to see someone pick up to sit down with Conal Keeney and say, "Look, at your 35, what brings you back? That you can do it, and the enjoyment." And it's an opportunity for. I got to know Conal Keeney over an interprovincial. We went to Boston to play an interprovincial final, and it was a really solid guy, really very funny guy, a great lad to be in his company. I met him a couple of times, and I was delighted to hear him that he's gone back. And all of a sudden, then when you're enjoying things, I often do it myself. You'll be talking about the bad ankles, the bad knees, but all those things are put to bed. He's something to offer. Dublin hurling. Obviously, Pat Gilroy thinks he's something to offer. And when you have the two of them working together with an open mind, I think it's only good for Dublin hurling. I'm delighted to see it. Delighted to see him back. I think if he feels that the body is able for it and he's something to offer, as I said, it shouldn't really matter what's on his birth cert. So I'm looking forward to see how it works out. I'd love to see it working out well for him, because he's a really good guy.
Johnny, pleasure as always. Thanks a million. Enjoy the games over the weekend. Best of luck to Kildare.
Thanks very much, lads. We'll talk to you soon.
Kev, I suppose Keeney's inclusion there as well, one of the most interesting aspects is the fact that he's such a big personality, and obviously he's going to be great for Gilroy to have around the panel, generally speaking.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting that Johnny mentioned Mick Dwyer there and testing the players, and I think if you look at the Dublin squad now under Gilroy, he's really testing the mental resolve of the players, and he's really trying to see who wants to be there. You talk about culture, and Conal Keeney is someone who can bring that culture in the dressing room. But I was at a couple of games, Walsh Cup games over January, and Dublin had a really busy schedule of challenge matches. There was one game they played Antrim on a Saturday in the Walsh Cup, and on a Sunday, and the day before they played Tipperary, and a lot of the same guys played in both games. So I think he's really testing the guys mentally.
A couple of early morning sessions, back into the fold as well, the famous early mornings. Yeah,
exactly. The early mornings are back, and that's a mental thing as much as it is physical, and I think that's what he's really looking for. He's adding a bit of steel. You mentioned that word, and one player I'd be looking forward to seeing is Thomas Connolly, St Vincent's, who'll be a young brother of Dermot, and he's a similar athlete. He's a brilliant athlete, and he's featured quite prominently in January midfielder, half back line. So I think he's the kind of guy that you're going to see Gilroy look to try and bring that steel going forward this year.
Yeah, kind of a physical backbone, I guess. And it's interesting. It seems to be working out for them. I know. Okay, they conceded 6 goals to Tipperary in the championship last year in a qualifier. 6 goals, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They conceded just 1 in a recent challenge game. Now, albeit they shipped 26 points in the process, but at least they seem to be shoring up their defence. I think was it 1 goal across 3 games they've conceded.
Yeah, I think like if you ask anyone what did he bring into the Dublin footballers, it was that kind of defensive security, and that's what he's probably focusing on initially to make Dublin sound at the back. And then they do have the forwards. I mean, we talk about players who are back in. Danny Sutcliffe is one guy who's he's been out of intercounty hurling for a couple of years, and it's probably going to take him time to get back into it. But if you add someone like that into the forward line, like you have the cooler guys come back in. You have Donald Burke who kind of came on the scene last year and played really well. So I think Dublin do have the forwards. It's just about being solid at the back, and once they get there, they can build forward from there.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Walsh Cup there, and of course, I mean, with a cracking Walsh Cup final between Wexford and Kilkenny. Interestingly, Davy Fitzgerald a couple of weeks ago, or might even have been last week, was talking about how he almost feared playing Dublin in the Championship now that they are going to be a serious entity again. Nice little bit of, I suppose, what's the word, like there's a potential controversy, not controversy now, but controversy brewing, I think, between Davy and Cody. It's probably never too far away. Fitzgerald doing his usual thing of, look, I could tell you a load of things, but I'm not going to, but here's 3 or 4 anyway. This is in response to Cody's remarks about Richie Reid's red card in the World Cup final. Cody gets sent off and then says, well, he was being pulled and dragged, the helmet was being pulled off him. Fitzgerald says, well, I've had that happen plenty of times as a manager. But I mean, it's interesting, like Davy Fitz's record against Cody is extremely strong now, and obviously they're going to be playing against each other in the league. I think it's the final round of...
I think it's the third round of the league.
Is it the third round?
I think so, yeah. There's definitely a lot of spice to the kind of Davy and Cody rivalry now. It's Davy's third win on the trot against Cody. He beat him in the league and the Championship last year. And just the competitor that Davy is, he really enjoys beating Kilkenny. As you mentioned, they're going to play twice more this year, and the league game is down in Nolan Park. And I think, Kilkenny over the years, when they were dominant, they always spoke about keeping teams down and continually beating teams to keep that dominance over them. And I'd imagine if you're in the Wexford dressing room before they play Kilkenny, Davy is talking about something similar, that they want to keep Kilkenny down and keep the kind of keep beating them, while they kind of have the advantage there.
Yeah, I suppose impose some sort of a psychological dominance as well. All of a sudden a hoodoo can begin and you wouldn't even realise it. Kilkenny opened their league account against Cork. It'd be interesting, obviously, to see how both these teams go. You made the point to me earlier, actually, which I thought was a good one, where for Kilkenny, obviously the challenge for Cody over the last couple of years has been blooding youth and bringing through players, and how, because for so long in the past they were perpetually dominant over opponents, it was a nice opportunity to bring in a young lad, and he might hit 4 or 5 points when the pressure was off. But presumably this year, akin to last year, that opportunity, kind of like that little cushion, that little comfort, might not be there, and therefore it's difficult to bring a lad off the bench if you maybe are trailing Waterford or whoever by 2 points and expect them to change the game. Like Cody, when he does bring in some of the players from, say, was it the under-21 team that got to the Leinster final last year, he's going to have to demand results from them almost straight away, because Kilkenny are, they're in need of players to change things. Yeah,
if you look at Kilkenny's two best forwards anyway, will be Richie Hogan and TJ Reid, and both of those guys would have served a serious apprenticeship on the bench for a number of years before they actually got onto the team, because they had the likes of Henry Shefflin and Owen Larkin and Eddie Brennan ahead of them. Whereas now, I think there's more pressure on the younger guys, the likes of Richie Lahey and Liam Blanchfield, Alan Murphy, who's come in this year. They don't have that chance to settle in and come into a winning team. They're coming on and they're starting games, and especially because TJ and Richie are kind of struggling with injuries. So
they're both out this weekend.
Yeah, they're both out this weekend, and like Brian Cody has trawled the county this winter looking for talent. I think he's had 50 odd players in with the squad this year, so he's really trying to kind of find the next TJ Reid or Richie Hogan to build that. And I think the likes of Richie Latty and Alan Murphy in particular, under 21s last year, he's really going to look to them this year to see, do they have what it takes to get in there.
Absolutely. And yet, for all of his searching for this not quite a new generation, but just a couple of players to sprinkle across the squad, he's gotten rid of some fairly noteworthy names as well.
Yeah, I think there's talk down there that Jar Aylward, who was an All-Star in 2016, he's not part of the panel this year, and also John Joe Farrell, I think, has been dropped from the squad, or else wasn't in with them this year. So there's a number of guys who you would probably look at and say, okay, they'll get their chance this season, and they're gone. And then you have Paul Murphy and Colin Fenley, who are away serving with the army, and then you've got the retirements of Michael Fenley and Kieran Joyce. So you add that all in, and like suddenly the squad is it's getting stretched, and we mentioned earlier the league is going to be the league. There's a round robin gone into the provincial championship, so the league is going to be run out pretty quickly, and if Richie and TJ in particular are missing early on, then these younger guys are going to have to step up, or Kilkenny could be in trouble, certainly in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. We probably saw that with Richie Hogan as well last year when he was coming back off the back of a back injury.
Yeah.
He probably is a player at this juncture in his career where he maybe needs a couple of weeks games before he hits his stride, and in a Leinster Championship that now contains an apparently dangerous Dublin as well as Wexford, he might not be afforded that time. For Cork, it's kind of the converse is true in a way. It's more or less kind of tried to build upon what you achieved last year. They weren't a million miles away. They've plenty of players coming through. It's not necessarily a concern if there's any more. Obviously under new management with John Myler, it's a weird one because I don't think anybody really foresaw, well certainly from the outside, foresaw Kieran Kingston stepping away. Like, the challenge for Myler, I guess, is as we're saying, to build upon what Kingston achieved last year, but I don't know, what do you think Cork need to implement this year to go that step further? Like, the game last year against Waterford was it seemed like a bit of an anomaly. Like, all of a sudden the game had swung in their way with a fantastic Patrick Horgan point, and that was even after the red card. But then mistakes, and the game was over. Waterford swept them away. But it was one of those games where maybe you can read too much into a defeat given the margin, whereas it actually was quite a close game and a couple of key moments and different story.
Yeah, I mean, going into that game, it was probably, if you look at Cork at the Munster final, winning the Munster title was probably a bit of a surprise, and after that a lot of people were saying they were in bonus territory, and that was a completely different mindset. You look at the Waterford team that had been on the go for a couple of years, and they were going into that really looking to get to an All-Ireland final because they'd been to semi-finals before, and I just think the little mindset difference there might have been the difference between the two teams. But looking at Cork this year, I think a lot of the younger guys broke through last year and nobody knew who they were, and I think this year it's important that they don't, you talk about in the Premier League, you say have a second season syndrome, and it's important that these young guys this year kind of progress again, and don't kind of rest on their laurels from last year. I think I spoke to Patrick Horgan last week, and the players were surprised that Kieran Kingston stood down, but definitely with John Myler coming in, there's a sense of continuity there, and I think most of the backroom team has been retained. So I think those guys last year, they've won the Munster title, and now really they should be looking towards the All-Ireland. So I think if you did see them in the semi-final again, I just think their mindset would be a little bit different, and they wouldn't be in bonus territory. Yeah,
perhaps they might wind up where Waterford found themselves mentally last year. Very briefly then, Clare and Tip as well this weekend. Clare, you wouldn't say it's upheaval in their squad, but certainly they've lost a couple of key names, and they're also getting a couple back, I think. Certainly the 2016 captain is back in the fold, isn't he? Name escapes him now. Possibly not. I think with Clare, last year they were missing the Ballier guys for the league, and if you look at this year, I think what the two managers have tried to do, I've noticed just in the attack they've tried to have some kind of bigger players. So Peter Duggan is playing a lot this year, and Niall Deasy, who would have been one of Ballier's main forwards last year, is playing in attack as well. So I think they're kind of, in the past they had too many similar players, especially going forward and playing this kind of running game, whereas now I think they're trying to branch out a little bit in attack. So I think Clare are a team that people have almost forgotten about. Since their All-Ireland win, there's been a couple of years where they just haven't really progressed, and I think it's important for them to get a good league campaign in, because they do have serious talent there, and it's still a squad, littered with All-Ireland winners. So yeah, it'll be a good game, coming up against Tipperary, who this time 12 months they kind of had a winter where they were All-Ireland champions, and they almost put too much pressure on themselves. Well, they did a tip on it.
Yeah, they did it. They almost overthought the whole thing. Yeah. I think this time around, hopefully you'll see them play without the pressure and without the shackles.
Well, this has always been Tipper most dangerous, really. Yeah. And I don't think anybody's necessarily going to be writing them off this year. They again, probably similar to Cork. Well, actually, even more so than Cork. They were very close last year. They were a puck of a ball away from a replay anyway. You know what I mean? And you never know, but they'll surely be there.
I think the one thing, Shane McCallan is going to miss a number of games with an injury, so it's probably important that the likes of John McGrath and Bubbles O'Dwyer do step up. But you'd imagine this year now that you will see a kind of rejuvenated Tipperary again. They have Cottle Barrett back in the team. He was obviously dropped from the squad last year. I think you look at Tip's full back line, it was probably the one area where they were vulnerable, and I think he could really, obviously he'd slot back in there. He's a former All-Star, so you'd imagine that will really strengthen them up again.
Yeah, once there's no WhatsApp scandals there in Clonfettle again. Oh, that's all we've got time for on Close Calls. Thanks everybody for joining us. Our thanks to our guest as well, Johnny Doyle. Enjoyed the action over the weekend. Best of luck to all of your counties. We want them all to win. No boys here, apart from Cork, obviously, and Offaly. Until next time. Actually, I meant to say as well, we are going to be starting a fairly interesting venture across the course of the Six Nations. We've got a couple of live events lined up. It'll be Murray Kinsella and myself and a few very special guests as well. Thursday evenings. Keep your eye on the 42.e for details with that. And that's it. Enjoy the games over the weekend, and we will speak to you soon. Until next time, take care.